Welcome, friends and warriors, to another episode of Power Over Pink. I am your host and breast cancer survivor, Tara Kamm. Here on my channel, I love to highlight other warrior stories who have faced or are facing breast cancer and have them tell their journey in hopes of giving them a voice in a voiceless system, and also to kind of give light of what the battle might look like and share some hope and inspiration and share how they fought and how they can help you fight too. So sometimes I also like to highlight nonprofits to talk about what resources are out there for breast cancer survivors, thrivers, and current fighters. And sometimes we get a bonus and we get a warrior story and a nonprofit. So that's what today's show is. I'm so excited to introduce to you guys Susan Brooks. I actually met her at the YSC Summit in Atlanta, and she is here as a breast cancer survivor and as a representative for Casting for Recovery. So welcome, Susan, to the channel.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, you and I got to talk a little bit of your awesome story and all the things that you guys offer at Casting for Recovery. And that was actually my first time learning of that organization. So I'm so excited to hear a little bit about both. So,
Thank you.
first, just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
My name is Susan Brooks. I'm originally from Paducah, Kentucky. Currently, I live in Starkville, Mississippi. My husband and I moved here in 2007 and both went to work at Mississippi State University. I was diagnosed with multifocal invasive ductal carcinoma in 2018, had a double mastectomy, and with or through some complications and trouble, not being able to have reconstruction because of some additional things that they found, and then also some just life stressors, work at the university, and the fact that there wasn't any sort of support group here locally. I went online and was searching for things that would meet my passions and give me something to find in an online community. Didn't really know what I was searching for. I was just putting in things like outdoors and breast cancer and things like that, and ended up finding Casting for Recovery and applied to attend a retreat.
Okay. So, that was your first time learning of it as well. Had
It
you
was
ever done fly fishing before?
No, I had fished as a child. I grew up fishing. My father was on the crappie circuit, doing tournaments and things like that. So he had always had us fishing with a fixed line pole, a lot of crappie fishing on Kentucky Lake and some places around Western Kentucky, just around the country, wherever he was going. And after that, as a young adult, I did a little bit of fishing here and there, spin rod
Hmm.
mostly. And I always enjoyed it. I always loved being on the water.
Yeah.
I really loved any outdoor activity that had to do with being on the water. And this really just kind of grabbed my interest because it's not anything I'd ever been exposed to, fly fishing. Certainly, I'd never tied my own fly or even thought about that. And I just thought, I really could connect with these people and with this idea. I liked the idea of ecotherapy and, being out in nature.
Yeah.
I didn't
Very
know what to
healing.
expect, but it looked very healing and it looked fun.
Mhm.
So I was really hoping that I would get accepted and get a spot in one of the retreats.
So, where was your first retreat to?
My retreat was in Alabama. Um, and it wasn't very far from where we were, a few hours drive. And, it was really beautiful there. I met some amazing women, um, and really fell in love with the sport while I was there.
Yeah. And the groups are pretty small, so I imagine you made that support that you were looking for, having that system.
Yes, definitely. So the retreats normally have 14 women at a traditional retreat. And, we were all housed together, the volunteer staff and the participants. We got to try on some waders. We learned how to tie knots, learned about fly fishing. And the first thing I really fell in love with was tying flies. I I could not stop. I wanted to spend hours doing that.
Maybe therapeutic.
Very. And I would tell anybody ever that I never was very artsy.
Mhm.
I didn't do crafts, but something about that of having the pattern and being able to create something from scraps of material and feathers really appealed to me. And I really took to it right off the bat. I just really loved it. It was something to focus on and just would take your mind away. And it was the same thing that casting did. It just felt natural. And we were outside and it was beautiful. And, just a small group of women, we just had fun. And I really hadn't had fun in months. So I needed it really badly, and the women with the similar stories and the uncertainty, the constant uncertainty of when something was going to happen, of what was going to happen. Was this normal? Was it not normal? Why were my feelings all over the place? And just getting some of those answers that I didn't feel like I was really getting the same way in my doctor's office.
Yeah. 100%. I think that you nailed that one on the head for me because, a lot of times personally in my journey, when I ask questions at the doctor's office, I get a lot of like run around and nobody really has a clear, definitive answer. But when you talk to someone who's experienced that same symptom or experienced something similar, you do find answers and you even find more solutions than maybe you thought.
Right, it gives you places
Mhm.
to look.
Mhm.
And each of the casting for recovery retreats has a psychosocial facilitator, it has a medical facilitator, and they were there to ask questions. And when you're in a small group like that of just other women who have all gone through the same thing, your answers just roll off from one to the next. And you hear things like, I experienced that. And my doctor said, this was really unusual side effect, but not completely uncommon. And so you don't feel like you're unique
Yeah.
and that you've experienced something like that. You don't feel alone anymore. And I
Maybe
think
not as
that was
fearful too, because if somebody else is experiencing it, it doesn't feel like a scary, threatening thing.
Yeah, and just the ability to have that additional education and hear those other stories, it was really meaningful, um, and it was really needed.
Yeah. How far out were you from treatment when or from surgeries and everything that you went?
Well, I had not had any reconstruction and still haven't, years later, but it was in the first year. I attended my first retreat 10 months after I was diagnosed. So it was early on and it was a good thing for me. And I can see the benefit that I got from being in a room with people who were also newly diagnosed, who had some of the same hormone treatment that I was currently on, who had had a double mastectomy like I had, and also people who had been 5 or more years out from treatment who kind of could give you that viewpoint of what's on the other side. What does it look like? How does it feel
Yeah.
X number of years later?
Yeah. That's so many layers to that onion. But it's so, so very crucial to have some sort of clarity in the mess of breast cancer because it does get a little muddy through those waters.
Does.
It does. So, how old were you when you got diagnosed?
I was 48.
Okay. And any family history or anything like that?
No, I mean, not that I understood at the time. Since then, my mother has also been diagnosed. At the time, my father was dealing with non-Hodgkin's, and my husband and I, we've got 4 sons. My second son had neuroblastoma when he was a young boy. And so, what we did find out later, right a few months after my retreat, I had to have another lymph node resection, which was basically a year out from the first surgery. And then 2 years later, in 2021, I was diagnosed with kidney cancer, and and they couldn't figure out, what was causing it,
Yeah.
where it came from. It was an unusual spot to have a recurrence from breast cancer. So I actually ended up going to the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, and they found out that it was chromophobe, yes, renal cell carcinoma, which
Hmm.
is a rare form of kidney cancer. And they actually had me meet with a geneticist, and I found out that I have a rare SDH complex mutation that is genetic, that it was likely the cause of both origins of my breast cancer, my kidney cancer, and my son's neuroblastoma,
Wow.
and very likely is of my father's cancer as well.
Yeah.
Two of my kids ended up testing positive for the mutation, to my sons. And, my siblings and everything, they've been tested as well to see how that kind of plays out. But I know that a lot of women hear about, the BRCA1 and 2, and that is the thing that's getting a lot of attention.
Yeah.
But there are other mutations out there that also predispose people to different types of cancer, and mine just happens to be one of those as well. It's just not as common.
Yeah, no, it's not as common, so I'm glad you're mentioning it because it's very I've I've met a local survivor who has a gene mutation that makes her more likely, and then I met a lady at the summit also that has that gene mutation. So not the same, but a different one. So there's
Yeah.
so many layers to that. So a lot of times we'll hear that it's not genetic because of the BRCA1, BRCA2, but then you look at your family history and you have to
Like,
question.
hey,
So I asked my oncologist that question, and he said, "Science is ever changing.
yeah, there's always
There
more to learn.
always gonna be more tests to come out, and there's always going to be things that they don't know." So thankful for the science they do know.
Yes. And thankful for the continuing research into, these things that
Mhm.
will ultimately help us and help our children.
Yeah, absolutely. And just kind of keep you more aware of your own body too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you look like you're feeling good, so that's
I
good.
am. Yes.
Yeah. So now that you've gone to this first retreat, you've, gone through your breast cancer journey, you fell in love with the retreat, and then what?
I started volunteering immediately. I really connected with several of the participants that were there with me, and we all kept, in close contact, formed a private Facebook, group just for our group so that we could email and text back and forth. We had exchanged all of our, contact information, and I started talking with the women that were on the volunteer staff. I wanted to learn more about tying flies, and I wanted to go fishing, and I wanted to just continue to do things and find more healing and get out in nature more and explore some of the areas where we live that I just hadn't before. I hadn't taken advantage of it before. So I started talking with Mary Carol Jackson. Her and her husband Brandon own a fly shop in Alabama, and she was one of the instructors there. I got more information about learning how to tie, and my kids and my husband bought me a vise, and we went on a trip to their fly shop for my birthday, which
Nice.
was just a couple of weeks after the
Yeah.
retreat. But I had been talking about tying so much that's what they decided to get me for my birthday. And so I started tying right off the bat and got a lot of information from NC and Brandon about ways to tie. I got a book from, that they suggested that was in their shop, and some materials, and just watch these YouTube videos,
Mhm.
subscribe to this, look at this, so that I could learn more and more. I started working with the local group of volunteers to raise money to, provide more retreats in the area and kind of spread the information about casting for recovery. And then I just slowly took on, more responsibility as I could within the local program. For me, that was the Southeast Regional Program that serves Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and the Florida Panhandle. So I started going with these other volunteers and new volunteers from our group
Yeah.
of participants. And, we went to some fly groups like Magnolia Fly Fishing Group. We went up to Tupelo and went to a meeting there. And, there's a Magnolia group and several others that were close by. And then just going to the fly shop and going to the river. I got my first fly rod, and started doing some fishing. And eventually, I got where I could tie and sell them. And
I was
it
going to
was
ask
something that
that
was
because if you love
really
something,
therapeutic. Yeah, during COVID, especially when
oh,
everybody
yeah.
was stuck at home, I just could sit at my vise,
Mm.
for hours at a time
Wow.
and tie for other retreats when they were going to be coming back online, tying for friends. I was just like, tell me what you want. Let me make you something, and the good feelings that you get from doing things for other people, making things for other people, and being able to turn off some of those stressors, that is something that is really possible when you're setting a device and you're just creating something new, or when you're at a retreat or fly fishing and you're standing out there by yourself or with one other person right there, on the water, and you can just hear the water and you can feel it if you're wading, and you can listen to the birds and just watch the insects.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you don't catch anything, it's really okay, because you just feel so much better for being outside and just being at peace and doing something that for me, that I'm, counting, like making sure I do the steps of the cast right and trying to just get better with each cast.
Yeah. And catching a fish is fun if you should
Catching a
get so
fish
lucky.
is amazing. I've got a photo or two to share.
Yeah, I would love to see all the photos because that's going to make the story really more amazing. I love nature. My husband and I love camping. We've grown up with our kids going outside. So I know how healing that can be. I live in the Florida Panhandle. I live in Gulf Breeze, Florida, which is Pensacola Beach. So I feel my most peaceful and calm at the beach. And I love fishing. And so everything you're saying resonates with me because I'm fortunate enough to live in this beautiful community and be able to explore and experience those things. But gosh, I went to the mountains to Colorado last year for my son's senior graduation trip, and there was some fly fishing people down in this little ravine, and the water was bubbly and flowing, and oh, it just drew me in, and I was like, oh man, this place is so magnificent and so beautiful. So everything you're saying, it just even just hearing you talk about it, you can almost feel the peace that you've experienced there. I
Yeah,
think
it was.
those who are not fortunate enough to be able to go out in nature and really soak it up and receive that time to just recharge and reset and just let it all kind of let go. And this sounds like what everybody needs.
Yeah. Yeah, even if you don't have breast cancer,
Yeah.
being in nature,
Yeah.
relaxing, even
Yeah.
if you're there with a friend, you're there with a spouse or a
Mhm.
partner, just being there and just soaking up,
Yeah.
all of the serenity.
Yeah.
And if you catch that fish and you release it,
Yeah.
letting it go back into nature, it's beautiful.
It really truly is. Kind of like letting go all of our problems too.
Yes.
Just let it go.
Yes. And as I've been to retreats as a volunteer over the years, and then now as a staff member, it has been something that I hear repeatedly from our participants, that sometimes casting the line is just like throwing your fears out, and releasing that fish is rejuvenating. For them, it was for me, and you see that over and over again, and you see the joy that you've been able to give to somebody else, and it just fills your cup back up
Yeah.
every time.
Mm, that's beautiful. What a beautiful experience to be able to get to be part of that. So you loved it so much. Now you're addicted to tying flies. I am artsy and craftsy, and I totally understand. But I also understand how even just that is so therapeutic. And, we're doing two local ladies, two survivors here, and myself have started a face to face for Young Survivor Coalition in our region. And tomorrow
Okay.
night at my house, I'm actually, or Friday night, excuse me, hosting a painting party because painting is also therapeutic. Like, even if what you paint is just terrible, it's just,
Mine would be.
yeah. But something about just releasing and creativity and using our hands for purpose and our mind and hands together, it just creates this, I don't know, good flow of, I don't want to say energy, but it is flow of energy being
Right.
creative. And that is so healing. So this will be my second, like, kind of paint party that we've had because of my belief in that. So when you said that you did it and you got hooked, I'm like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. One of the women that attended the retreat with me, they did a paint party
Hmm.
where um, some of the women got together and they actually, I don't know what they called it actually. They basically just used a small canvas and they did a paint blob of their chest. They had reconstruction, and then they just had their new
Yeah.
breast on there, and she was so proud of that, and it was so amazing. And I
Yeah.
can see where it kind of really did, give them all like this just joy. And
Yeah.
anything that gives you joy,
Yeah.
it's something to do over.
Absolutely. What a good idea. I might have to borrow that idea.
Good, good.
That is a fantastic idea. Well, so now you are in charge of the whole region, the southern region. So
Yes.
you've been doing this for a couple years now, and
Right, right.
you've
I
seen,
started, yeah, with Casting for Recovery in January of 2023. I took a complete pivot in my career from higher education um, to nonprofit work, and I love it. I love it. I get to work from home most of the time. I'm here at the desk, and I work with volunteer groups across the southern United States, from the Carolinas down through Florida and across the southern United States to New Mexico and Texas.
wow,
Yeah, so right now I've got, let's see, 14 states kind of included in my area, and we hold 16.
hmm,
And last year was the first Mississippi retreat. We
hmm,
held that in southern Mississippi near the Louisiana border
yeah,
in Poplarville.
yep,
And then this year we had our first tri-state retreat, which was in Western Kentucky, where I grew up.
hmm,
But it had, includes women from Western Kentucky, Southern Illinois, and Southeastern Missouri. But in reality, we had women that drove 7 or 8 hours from
wow,
near Chicago to get down to the retreat in Western Kentucky. It was amazing. It was
yeah.
fantastic.
I think the word is out. I think people know how fantastic it is. In fact, one of the other leaders of the face to face coordinator, Heather, when I came back from the summit, she said, "Oh, guess what? I got into this casting for recovery group." So she got
Nice.
accepted, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just met her."
That's great. So is she
Yeah,
attending the Southeast Regional
I
retreat?
believe so. I'm not even really sure all the details, but she got in and she was so excited.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so she's,
Yeah. So
yeah,
we'll see her in Alabama in May.
okay. Well, I'm from Alabama and I know how beautiful it is there, so that's sure to
Yeah.
be a good one. Yeah. Well, so do you find most of the people who come to these events immediately turn around to become volunteers?
I think a good portion of them volunteer, and we usually have women who continue to tie. We have women who continue to fly fish, and it really just depends on, where they are in their treatment and what they can do or are able to do, but they really continue to support the program. Seeing women repeatedly who, even if they don't feel like they're ready to go out fishing by themselves, they'll hire guides to take them fishing. They will ask about, what is the best starter vise where I can do this, or how do I continue working with this program? And of the 14, we'll see several start volunteering usually within a few months of the
Yeah.
retreat. And even if they don't do any on the ground volunteering, they're doing some online volunteering. They're spreading information. They're talking about how amazing their retreat was and how rewarding it was to them personally. And they're sharing their stories with other women that they know from either their breast health clinic or their oncologist or people in their family, even. And they start talking about my aunt or my mother or my sister attended this amazing retreat. And I want to do something. I want to talk about this to other people. And they'll share it on Facebook and Instagram. And it's a wonderful way to get that information out there about this program
Hmm.
because we are in
Yeah.
every state. And, people live all over the place. They have family that are spread out all over the place. And this is another way that they can connect with local volunteer programs
Yeah.
across multiple states. So
Yeah.
it's a really, really good opportunity to just share the love.
I agree. I think that support is one of the best things that comes out of, going to these retreats and having that system put in place to have people around you who've experienced it, especially when you've gone through the ringer maybe more than once. And as you know, facing cancer twice, that's super hard. And every bit of it's challenging mentally, physically, emotionally. There's so many layers to that. And so, you can talk to your friends and you can talk to your family, but do you get that same healing that happens when you talk to someone who understands?
That's true
Yeah.
because when you say something about scan anxiety or, I've got to go have this test run in 2 weeks, they understand that. They understand the underlying fear of everything that happens. You're like, what does that mean? This reminds me of that, or something along those lines. And so it is something that they can commiserate with. They can really feel that
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
And just, they can't fix it, but they can be that person, that community, that shoulder. And then you get to turn around and be that shoulder for them when it's time for theirs.
Yeah. True. You have to have that team behind you and that support. I love that you experienced your own journey and then turned around to give back to those who are going through it because that says an awful lot about your heart. It says an awful lot about who you are as a person.
Thank you.
I imagine that every person who's a part of this program is forever changed. And it's because of people like you who've experienced it and have a heart to help those through. So thank you for who you are and what you're doing.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah.
I love doing it. And honestly, I think that a lot of the people that work with our organization, I mean, we're a small staff, but I think that we all get so much joy and so much satisfaction from helping other women. And we get to see those moments of joy
Yeah.
and read and hear about in our evaluations just how meaningful the retreats can be to somebody. You hear people say all the time, you don't know what other people are going through. But when you see that up close and personal, retreat after retreat, or you hear about it in the evaluations, it just makes you want to be there for more, to give back everything you can, and to be reassuring and promoting something that will give them joy.
Mhm.
So you don't even feel guilty about asking for friends to support it or share links or anything like that, because you know that anybody who attends is going to get so much more out of it
Yeah.
than any one person is going to put into it. And it just radiates, like water ripples throughout your community and continues to give more people joy and support.
Yeah. I mean, truly, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. How long has Casting for Recovery been in existence? Do you know?
Yes, we started in 1996, one of the
Wow.
longest standing fly fishing wellness retreats, the longest standing nonprofit for this type of venture. The original women who started this are still involved with the organization at a trustee sort of level or past trustee. They at least, they stay involved. They know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then all of our trustees are they're volunteers. They give their time and their energy to, supporting this project. It started in Vermont and spread throughout the United States. There are even international programs who have used our guide, our kind of tried and true methodology for creating this situation, this atmosphere, this retreat for women, and it works.
Yeah. Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they're like, I want to be a part of this awesome thing that's happening, this transformative, beautiful thing that's happening for people who've been through such hardships. Yeah, I could see why somebody would want to create and copy and mimic that beautiful, organization. So, well, my question is, so I looked online before we started chatting, and I know that the program is free. So should you get accepted, and all you have to pay for is travel expense, correct?
Right, that's right. Every year at the beginning of the year, our applications open for all of our retreat programs. Last year we had 60 retreats across the United States.
Wow.
And so you apply to the retreat that's closest to you geographically or in your state. And we do have some specialty retreats, some that are just for metastatic women, some that are just for young women. And, you know, send in a very short, simple application
Yeah.
online. And then when it's about, a few months before the retreat, we do a random drawing of the people who have applied. And then those 14 women, if it's a traditional retreat, any age, any stage, at any time through treatment or recovery. So if it's that traditional retreat, it's usually 14 participants. Our metastatic retreats are usually 10 participants.
Nice.
And those, we have 14 that are selected. And then we also have a larger number that are alternates.
Hmm.
And, because this is breast cancer, because there are a lot of women on active treatment or who are having surgeries,
Yeah.
because, reconstruction isn't just one surgery. When you're looking at breast cancer reconstruction, it's a multi-staged process. So there are always issues of whether or not, they can obtain doctor's approval to attend. While fly fishing is a very gentle movement, and we do our very best to pamper everyone and deal with all dietary issues or medical issues.
Nice.
Sometimes, someone is sick or they've got, a treatment that can't be postponed or a surgery that has just happened. And so, we then fall back to our alternates who are also asked to turn in a doctor's release and some personal information about their cancer journey. And then, we make sure that we do our best to make sure that we get the maximum number of women that we can for each retreat. And then our retreat staffs start, they're gearing up all year long for these retreats, making plans, organizing, making sure they get the locations down. That is, the best situation that we can come up with for lodging and fishing and everything in one spot, and fundraising throughout the year to make sure that as many women as we can send can go.
Yeah.
And then we just all come together and create a new community with every retreat.
Wow. That's truly beautiful. I will certainly be applying.
Individual program Facebook pages for your state or your area, and they may have a special code that you can enter from their unique program code that will give you entries.
Well, anything else you feel like someone needs to know about your program or your story or anything like that?
About the program, there's probably more to say than I even could tell.
Yeah.
I think that You can see so much by looking at some of our videos on YouTube at our Casting for Recovery channel. There are videos going back, over a decade.
Yeah.
And you can hear the women give their own testimonials about, how they found Casting for Recovery, how they attended a retreat, whether or not, you know, they caught a fish, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's not about the fishing, we say that all the time. It's not about the fishing, but but it is. And they like to catch something, to release it, to talk with their guides, because while this is the first 2 days of our retreats are women only. It's the participants and the volunteer staff. On the last day, we also bring in other community guides, people who fly fish in the local waters. And
Yeah.
they come in, and some men, some women, and every participant gets to fish
Mm.
with their own guide, and sometimes even two guides if we've got more volunteers than, than we've got participants. And the guides walk away from this experience also so blessed and so humbled, just from watching the participants fish and talking with them for a few hours on the water. It transforms their thinking about fishing as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just the joy that can be created for these women. It's not just the community, it's everything together. It's so much more than any one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And every retreat that I've been to is a little bit different, because it's the personality of the participants and the personalities of the staff that come together to make it very unique for that small group of women. At a couple of my retreats, they will work this great boob puzzle. It is every shape, size, color, and compilation of boobs you can come up with, all one puzzle. It's beautiful. It's no boobs, it's one boob. It's amazing. And they love it. They just laugh over doing it and have the best time. Sometimes at our retreats, we offer some art therapy. We typically offer some additional casting practice or some extra time on the water fishing. There are a lot of additional things dependent upon what volunteers are there and what expertise there is available. But we'll have meditation sessions, or at one of the retreats they had paddle boats, and it was absolutely hilarious to watch two of our participants just race across the water and completely throw shade on a couple of our staff members. I mean, they take their tail on the water. And it was hilarious. And we just had a blast talking about it. And, it's those little things that you learn about each person that is so unique and special that you keep with you even past that weekend.
Yeah. I imagine you've come out of each of those with lifelong friends.
Yes. Yes, I have. And I love hearing about their continued journey, about, the ways that they have connected with other women, the ways that they have continued with outdoor activities, whether it is fly fishing, or whether they're at home fly tying, or whether they're just now walking and spending more time, um, around the water, or just in nature in general. They learn a sense of peace that really just, it just gives them something extra that they can rely on.
Yeah, absolutely. And look forward to and
Right.
escape from.
Yes, yes, definitely.
My goodness, Susan, you've summed it up beautifully and perfectly. And I can tell that it's true passion from your heart. I can
It
tell
is.
that it's something that you believe and you've seen and you love. I think that speaks volumes in itself. I think anybody listening can hear that. Anybody watching can see that. And this is a true gift that you are part of this organization. I know you see it as a gift to you, but you are also a gift to the organization. So anybody who is watching this, I mean, I know that you're feeling like I'm feeling right now, and you're probably just going to rush straight to the website and look it up. Highly recommend it. Check it out, castingforrecovery.org. Yes.
Yes.
And of course, look for the ones that are closest to you regionally and sign up, and hopefully you'll get in like my friend Heather did. Yeah, anybody who has any questions or comments or concerns, I'm sure you can reach out to Susan here, comment below, and then of course you can reach out to her via the website, and all that contact information is already on there. And also I would highly recommend going to their YouTube channel and watching some of those videos, because I think that you would be inspired and blessed just from seeing the reactions from some of those participants. So yeah, I would highly recommend, if not Casting for Recovery, that if you're watching this, that you do put down your barriers and try to find some community and find some support and find some people who understand, because it will change your trajectory and your journey no matter where you're at, whether you're just beginning or you're in the middle or coming to the end, although you're never really at the end after it's over. But it's easier when you know that you've got a team behind you. So highly support any sort of support groups that are near you, and maybe doing like what Susan did and just typing in breast cancer support groups near me. With AI and technology changing, there's much more availability and easier to find these things. So, but if not, Casting for Recovery is a great one.
It is.
Well, Susan, thank you so much for taking the time to share on the channel and to share your story with us just a little bit. And what a blessing you are.
Thank you. I feel the same. You're doing something amazing for women out there.
Well, thank you. Well, we'll just keep on changing the world together. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching another episode of Power Over Pink, and we'll have a new one coming out soon. Y'all take care.